Yo, what's up everyone? I'm Harlequins. I guess I should say long time no see, as you know, it's been a while since I did any video content here. I'm going to be completely honest, in the last few weeks, I just got absolutely sick of 40k and had enough of playing against the lame as fuck factions, all the new insane stuff fielded by Town, Harlequins, blah blah blah. Just had enough. I didn't want to play against that crap. I didn't want to hear about it. I didn't want to listen to other fellow community members complaining about how shit it was. My head was just bubbled from, you know, the relentless bullshit, and I wanted to forget about it all. I had absolutely zero motivation to play the game because I knew chances are I'd come up against, you know, one of those factions whereby I knew I'd finish that battle asking myself, what is the fucking point? You know, why bother? I'm not having fun, so why play the game? And, you know, that's just it, isn't it? You know, why waste your time? Even if you manage to bust a win against one of those super armies, there's a good chance you did it by playing the objective game, being super resourceful and downright sneaky to ensure your own survival, which isn't exactly much fun if you ask me, you know? One of the many reasons I hate fighting Custodies, for example, is it's like throwing bodies at a brick wall and you barely ever get any kills, you know, maybe 1, 2 or 3 if you're lucky. It's boring. People enjoy killing stuff and, you know, it can't just be a one-way thing. But anyway, today out came the emergency balanced Dataslate, again with Games Workshop's often haphazard approach to fixing their own mess. Let's just cut to the chase now. Big sad Genestealer cool got nothing. So there's 3 ways to look at that. One viewpoint would say, thank God we didn't get hit by some stupid points hike or random nerf. Great. Another view would say we didn't get anything lowered or buffed. Boo-hoo. Missed opportunity maybe. And finally, I think the majority would say, is this not, you know, a fine example that our codex is a shining exemplar of great writing, balancing and execution? It's not too strong, it's not too weak, it's just right. I think for the most part, you know, I agree with that. We're not weak, it's just some of our enemies are too strong. The problem lies with them. If every codex was as well done as ours, the world of 9th edition would be a happy, happy place. So what we have here is a bunch of fixes to bring those troublesome cases into line. I'm going to cover some of the important ones nice and quick before I get into the real fun stuff, which is the Astra Militarum buffs. Because, my God, they got something really, really cool. And as many of you know, I'm not just a Genestealer Cults player. I've got a huge Astra Militarum army sitting on the shelf at home that I've been building up in parallel for like the last 3 or 4 years. Granted, it doesn't see as much play as my GSC primary stuff, but I do love it dearly. That's what I did when I was a kid, you know, I had Catachan and stuff. I mean, I've actually got 3 Astra Militarum armies. I've got my main one, which is like, you know, generic Cadian grey sort of scheme. Then I've got my Brood Brothers army, which, you know, I've got all the infantry done over again with the proper Brood Brothers heads, and then they can also co-use some of the tanks. And then I've also got my Scions army, which also fits into it all, and, you know, I guess they're great fun as well. If I ever do play my Brood Brothers army, you know, standalone, what I'll probably do is just play with the Catachan rules, you know, because the guys are stronger, they've got a bit more leadership, and you get those great buffs for firing multi, you know, shot weapons like flamethrowers, anything like a, you know, tank cannon or whatever. That's great. Let's get all the balance tweaks and other stuff out of the way before we explore the real cool bits. So let's tackle Custodies first. Very significant change first up that makes it more tricky for them to hold primary points. Thankful for that. They've stripped back objective secured from all the HQs and the elites. So now it's just the Custodian Guard and the Sagittarian Custodians that get it by default, you know, rather than just all infantry. Correct me if I'm wrong here, guys. I'm not a Custodies player. To be honest, I feel dirty even just looking at their rules. I do truly hate them with all my being. So yeah, now all the characters, Fanatari, they're like the flying ones, I think, the big Alaris Terminators, all that stuff loses objective secured goodness, so ho ho ho, happy times for us and everyone else who fucking hates them. It's a good start. Part 2, some stratagems got reworked, most notably Emperor's Auspice, and this was the pain in the dickhole stratagem that basically turns off all your rerolls for hits and wounds and stuff. So on its own, it wasn't too horrendous, but if you're stacking it with Arcane Genetic Alchemy, which is their version of transhuman, you know, where you can't be wounded on a 2 or 3, it basically sucked mega dick. It meant that our exposed ability of +1 to wound just got totally, you know, balls snipped off. They'd do it every time you got into a fight with them, and as long as they had enough CP, they could just bankroll through and make all your critical attacks flop hard, then they'll smash you back, and then they'll just steamroll to victory. Well, now they can only shoot off your rerolls once in the whole game. So I'll take that, you know. Bear in mind, it's only for that one phase 2. So they've got to choose, do they want to shut off some of your shooting rerolls, some of your melee rerolls, you know, they can't do it again and again in every phase. Arcane Genetic Alchemy is still fine to use multiple times, but now it's only on infantry. I didn't realise you can use it on anything non-vehicle originally, so that included jet bikes, for example. So that's another minor win. Let's move on to Tau. Now, the main thing here is that every faction has been hit with a big nerf to indirect fire weapons, and Tau are the main culprit why this has happened. So every faction now, when they are firing indirect fire weapons like mortars, for them the airburst stuff, they now suffer a -1 to the ballistic skill penalty if they can't directly see someone. If you can see them directly, then it doesn't apply. Also, when that stuff comes over, your infantry gets a +1 to their save. So this gives us a respite against all that stuff. It just makes us harder to hit, and not to mention, you know, you get more save. So if we have some neophytes hiding at the back of the board, out of line of sight, let's say they're in cover, so they're going to get +1 for the cover save, they're going to get +1 for the indirect fire buff save, and you know, you could get an additional +1 for one with the shadow stratagem, and if you're rusted claw, you know, that also lowers any AP by 1, so that's happy days, you know, that's just not as scary anymore. Sadly, for our Tyrannid Hive Guard allies, this does make them a bit worse, but I'm not fielding them anymore in a Hive Mind list, so fuck it, who cares? On our maiden codex roster, it means that our Ridge Runners with heavy mortars are just even worse now. Never take them. I don't think anyone in the right mind was before. Someone in the back there's going to be like, I was. But yeah, you know, I just really would not bother. However, there is one exception to this rule, which is the Astra Militarum, and there's just a blanket rule which says every faction apart from the Astra Militarum. So we'll come to that later. Anyway, other stuff in the Tau. Broadsides also lost the core keyword, so that's more great news. They really should never have had it in the first place. It would have been like, you know, for us if all of our heavy options got it. It's just not on. So yeah, that's cool. Moving on, Harlequins, the new big threat to watch for. They got hit with some pretty hefty points changes from what I can see. Star Weavers, their little transports went up by 15 points each. And the Void Weavers went up by a massive 40 points each. You know, that's huge. I mean, I haven't even played them yet since the new codex came out, but 40 points is a big high. Anyone can see that. Every little helps. It just means that these players are going to have to be a bit more resourceful with the less units they can bring to the table instead of just happily throwing them into the grinder with little care and being like, fuck it, you know, I've got another 10 over there. Some other shit got changed that I didn't fully understand, so I won't pretend I do and talk out of my arse. Just go and look it out yourselves. You know, I'm not a Harlequins player. Lastly, Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, Sisters and Grey Knights all got a blanket buff that is actually really pretty significant actually. They now basically worsen the AP of all attacks by 1. So that goes for shooting and melee. I mean, it's like the Rusted Claws ability, you know, where it lowers AP -1 by 1, AP -2 by 1. It's really big. Some classic examples why it might be a massive issue for us. All of our -4 AP weapons, like the saws, the drills, and the cutters, now cannot just kill a Marine with no chance of an armor save like they would before. It means that anything AP -1 is just a bit crap. Kelemorph's pistols, I'm looking at you. And for example, if we use Inescapable Decay, the Rusted Claw Psychic Power, it's not going to make a blind bit of difference to their save. You know, that really pisses me off. I know I'm bringing up Rusted Claw a lot, but to be honest, I've actually been using them a lot recently, and I was just starting to find their playstyle really fun. Sounds weird coming from me, Mrs. Twisted Helix. If we want to counteract this, I suppose we could look at the Bioficus's Geonomic Enhancement ability to buff an extra AP, instead of usually it'll be, you know, the Feel No Pain or the Exploding Sixes to hit. That's what I'd usually do. Maybe now this is an option. In the past we didn't really need it. There's also the Myriad Cool Trait Cold-Eyed Killers, which improves AP by 1 across the board, everything. I'd never selected it in the past. Again, I didn't feel like we really needed it. But if I'm going to do an Industrial Affinity route army, who knows? This could be a good thing to pair it up with now. Don't forget, this is not just for Space Marines and Sisters Infantry, it's for everything in their army basically, bar probably, you know, their weird auxiliary units. What else should we be interested in here? Let's see. The bodyguarding ability has changed. So now it's not just a blanket, you cannot target this unit thing, you know, that never turns off until the bodyguard unit's dead. For example, you could put a bodyguard squad behind a wall, and then the character they're protecting could be out in front of the wall, but you still can't shoot them until all those guys at the back are dead. You'd have to get somehow around them, kill them, whatever. You know, it's just a bit stupid. And people have been complaining about this since forever. Well, now it has changed. Basically, it's the wording that is different. Now it reads that the Bodyguard Rule is basically an extension of Lookout Sir. It means you can benefit from Lookout Sir even if there is less than 3 models protecting them. This is a big change because now it means that it's actively referenced by the Lookout Sir rule. We can bypass it now with snipers and the like. The Sanctus, the Kellamore, for example, they're going to love it. Now it's so much less of an arsey rule to interact with. Keep in mind that our own Locust, however, does suffer from this too, so enemy snipers can bypass this ability and shoot your Patriarch or whatever he's protecting. So now I've gone through all the basic stuff, let's get on to the real beef and cheese, the exciting part. Now, this might not seem important to a lot of people who watch my videos because you probably never played the Astra Militarum before, but please do keep in mind, we can still take a single detachment of Brood Brothers in our legit army list up to a quarter of our full army size list. So typically that's 500 points within a 2,000 points list. Previously, when the new codex came out, most of us sane GSC players looked at the Brood Brothers thing and immediately came to the conclusion it was dead, stupid, just forget about it. There was no real competitive need or option to include the units we wanted in a cult list. We lost the ability to incorporate Scions, Bullgrin, Psychers, air support, anything like that which had a shred of viability, thanks to the fact that now we can only use things which have the regiment keyword. They're all auxiliary stuff, they don't have it. So they've either got the Auxilia, Psychana, Tempestus Regiment, or whatever the fucking flying Navy word is, I can't remember. It all became a no-go. Now, the big buff Astra Militarum received, and so also us, you know, in a good way, is that they now have an army-wide bonus called Hammer of the Emperor. When making ranged attacks, an unmodified hit roll of 6 auto wounds the target. Fuck me. Remember how I said I was a big fan of our stratagem called Massed Firearms, where you select a squad and any hit rolls of 6 auto wound their target. You know, so you could put that hurt on a big thing like a Dreadnought, or a tank or a knight or something with basic auto guns and shotguns. Yeah, you remember that? The stratagem that I said was awesome because it bypasses transhuman and all those annoying wound mitigating abilities. Now imagine your whole army's got it all the time for free. Picture the vast arsenal that the Astra Militarum's got at its disposal. Infantry, conscripts, tanks, heavy weapons teams, artillery, tank destroyers, super heavy tanks. The list is near endless. All of this now has permanent mass firearms. A 30-man conscript squad with las guns is 150 points. When given first rank fire, second rank fire order, that's 4 shots each, 120 shots, put the brain cogs in action here. That's basically, you know, let's say a 1/6 of those will auto wound, most likely, or statistically. That's 20 saves against a target. You know, they've got to make those 20 saves, not taking into consideration all the other wounds that you're going to get through after that as well. So in a small 2CP patrol, you get, you know, 3 big conscript blobs plus a company commander for just under 500 points. That's 90 men ready to swamp the board that suddenly have the ability to actually hurt anything in the game, never mind the fact that they have a massive footprint and they'll need a lot of firepower to be killed in return. It's a distraction plan worth reckoning at the very least, because that's 90 men plus the other 3/4 of your army you haven't even got onto yet, you know, being slapped down on the board. You know, you could also have 1,500 points for acolytes, neophytes, whatever takes your fancy. Now, granted, this is nowhere near as good for us as it is for, say, Cadians. Oh my god, like, let's consider their version of this approach. They could field 360 conscripts in a list and still have room for 200 points of HQ characters and whatnot. You know, how many armies can deal with that, you know, and not get shot to shit in the meantime? Let's look at their buffs. Access to shock troops. That's the stratagem that gives them the ability to get AP -1, the las guns. There's Cadia Stands, which is a bonus to armor saves and mini transhuman like Twisted Helix. There's huge hit and reroll buffs like Relic of Lost Cadia, Vengeance for Cadia, overlapping fields of fire. And that's only thinking about the infantry. Let's consider all the artillery, the Wyverns and the heavy mortars, you know, you can get for dirt cheap. On that point, let's talk about one rule that we mentioned earlier. All factions now suffer -1 to the ballistic skill when firing indirect if they can't see the target. That is all factions apart from the Astra Militarum. That's right, they don't apply to them. It's only 150 points for like 9 mortar teams. Stick a platoon commander in the middle of them, and then he just needs to give one order to all of them to reroll, you know, the hits or whatever, and that applies to all of those 3 squads then. That's the buff that came in the last Dataslate thing. How good is that? I haven't even spoken about the other part, which concerns regular infantry squads. For 60 points, all of their equipment upgrades are now free. So take what you want, go crazy. It's 60 points regardless. So that basically means you can throw in a power sword, a plasma pistol, a melta gun, a voxcaster, plasma gun, whatever, las cannon team for free. Just whatever you want. So in a manner of speaking, infantry squads just got a 30-point reduction equivalent. For 360 points, we've got to bring 60 men, packing 6 las guns, 6 melters, all the voxcaster shit, plasma pistols, when before that would cost 540 points. All of those with the massed firearms permanent upgrade. That's 60 bodies on the table that your opponent has to deal with. Infantry spam like this, that gets its durability from numbers. When you bring a list like this, your opponent has so many more decisions to make and targets to deal with, stuff they've got to sort out to make the win. Remember that bringing Brood Brothers does not stop us from getting crossfire. All of that shit still applies. The real point I want to make here is that we can bring a lot of bodies to the table all of a sudden that have the ability to actually do damage, and that's only a quarter of the army. We still have a huge selection of seriously dangerous melee troops and sneaky shit at our disposal that Cadians and the rest of the guard do not. We can blend in that new firepower with our pure strings, our aberrants, our fucking acolytes, whatever. Think about it. Now, some of you are going to say, this is a load of shit. And I'm not going to say for sure how viable it is yet, but you can bet your ass I'm busting my Brood Brothers out at the weekend and testing this idea. I mean, well, I'm recording this on Thursday night. I'll be drunk tonight. I'll make it home to Nottingham by late Friday. My game's first thing Saturday morning at Warhammer World in Nottingham. So by the time this video goes up, I might have already played that idea. I'll insert a little texting now. Let's find out how it went. Bathrobe bitch. Let's hope it was positive news. Anyway, as always, I intend to get nice and drunk now, so let me know your thoughts on the big changes and new opportunities below. There's probably something I haven't thought of, so type away, and I'll see you soon.